A quick note, since I started this podcast, it's been a few days. A lot has come to light. A lot more information has been learned from speaking with other people and a lot of contemplation on this. The situation is a politically motivated administrative lynching of these officers. As you will hear in the rest of this podcast, you'll hear exactly why I think that. And you'll see that these officers did not get the same due process as any other citizen would, period. This is new. It's shrouded in cowardice by the city government and the San Antonio police chief. I won't even really mention cowardice of the DA's office because I'm hearing they did not initiate this. They were conferred with, but they have their own issues in of themselves. This was done to pander to the anti-police activists, the ones that tried to defund us, the ones that try to pass some bullshit justice charter. This is the chief and the city management trying to get ahead of the backlash by the anti-police activists that'll throw tantrums in the form of violence, violent protests. As you'll see also that the chief charged these officers quickly, and this was within 6 hours, so he can fire them. Because by contract, these officers cannot be fired or terminated without pay unless they're charged. So this was done very craftily, no doubt. I appreciate y'all listening. Please leave me some comments and feedback. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Willie Cantu with the Blue Wolf Podcast. I wanted to get into this situation that occurred on last Friday, June 23rd, 2023. An officer-involved shooting that involved 3 police officers, 1 sergeant, 2 patrol officers. Occurred about 2 a.m. early Friday morning in the 6200 block of Old Pearsall Road in an apartment complex there. I don't know the name of the complex. It doesn't matter. But the biggest issue with this is how quickly they were charged by the decision made by the chief of police, San Antonio Police Department, William McManus, and Bexar County DA Civil Rights Division. I am hearing that it was about 6 hours after the incident that they were charged and then arrested and then obviously given a bond. And I'm not sure. I'm hearing that they were still in as of, I think, yesterday and hadn't bonded out. I'm also hearing they got $1 million bond. I don't know. I thought I saw 100,000, but I thought that'd be kind of low for them. But that doesn't matter either. What matters is in approximately 6 hours, definitely less than 11, the San Antonio Police Department Chief of Police conferred with the Bexar County District Attorney's Civil Rights Division, and I'm sure he conferred with the city managers, or I'm sure they conferred initially. They probably initiated that conference with him because this is definitely political. Now, I'm not defending the actions of the police officers that were involved. There is body cam footage that has been put out to the public already. That was pretty quick in and of itself. So you can see the footage from the 3 officers that were involved. Now, mind you, I don't know how many officers were on scene because you see the footage of these officers in the link, and I'll post the link on there if you haven't seen it already. There are probably, what I can see is maybe 6 to 8 officers there. And then I hear, and they were in the back of the apartment that all this went down. And there were some officers at the front door also. I don't know how many were there. So mind you, in situations like this, they all have body cameras that they have to have on. They should be on. And some of the police vehicles, I'm not sure if they all do still, but they have co-band video as well. But the most important part of all of this is the body camera footage that they all have. And you just can't say, well, I arrived and I didn't do anything, and therefore not have to write a report, or they're not going to collect your evidence. They're going to collect everybody's evidence, and you have to write a report, whether it be on the reporting system, or whether it be an encode on the computer program that they use to take calls. Either way, it's all documentation. So there's a lot of evidence, mind you. But what bothers me is how quickly this all occurred. And these officers were charged with murder. And you should know that murder is a serious crime. Usually you relate murders to, ill intent, to malice, to law breaking. So mind you, these officers, they weren't off duty and leaving a bar or at a party or something like that. They had answered a call for service. Okay, they had answered a call from the San Antonio Fire Dept, who arrived first. They were the true first responders. And allegedly, 40-something-year-old female, and I won't mention her name, was cutting wires to the fire alarm system in the apartment complex. Initially, I had heard, and the chief has mentioned in his news brief, that she was doing that in her apartment. Well, now I'm hearing that she was doing it all over the complex. Now, I don't know how many wires she cut, but nonetheless, she's interfering with that system that's important to the public safety of every resident there. So, and what they say was a felonious criminal mischief is what it was. So she committed criminality, and she was a suspect for that. Okay, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, unless you're a police officer. We're supposed to also, but nonetheless, what bothers me is, again, how quickly they charged him. So the SAFD calls the police, the officers arrive, and they make contact with this female outside. And I hear they even identified her. So they were there for a little bit, however long that takes, and she gave them her name. And then she walks away, and walking away eventually turned into running away. So they didn't catch her before she made it inside of her apartment, mind you. The officers pushed, and obviously, like I mentioned, you have a group of officers in the back and a group of officers in the front. Now, she had a bottom floor apartment. The back part of her apartment, there was a porch type patio where, if you know anything about apartments, there's a railing that also sections it off from, just the outside. So you can easily jump the railing also. And the officers gathered up back there, and like I said, I'm not going to defend their actions. I mean, that's a whole nother issue to talk about. But they pushed, for whatever reason, to apprehend her. And while she was running around inside, cussing at them, yelling at them, telling them that they didn't have a warrant, and she's right, they didn't have a warrant, that they couldn't come in there. I believe one of the officers tore off the screen from the window, and she threw a glass candle at him and struck him in the arm and caused some minor injuries. Nothing life-threatening is from what I hear. And if you watch the body cam, that's when the officer draws his one of them, and I don't know how many before, draws a weapon. She retreats back into her apartment or further into it and grabs a hammer. Now, what's important is that we don't know, of course, now we know it's a hammer, but I don't know what the officer saw. Okay, so we don't have that information. I don't think the chief had it at the time either. But she goes up to the window, and she hits the window and breaks it. And one of the officers fires at her from outside of the guardrail, outside of the patio. and he misses her. They continue to push. Well, when she gets fired at, she goes back further into the apartment, then comes back out with the hammer, and then approaches in the same way towards the window, and three of them engage her, and that's when she gets struck, and then they make entry inside to treat her, and I believe she died. I don't know if she died right there, but obviously it was a lethal force. So that's the summary of the incident in a nutshell. And like I said, I'm not going to go any further into it. I have some notes here that I'm trying to follow here. So if it looks like I'm hesitating, bear with me, because I don't want to give you any kind of false or wrong information. Okay. So if you watch and I'll give you a link to that, the news briefing, the conference that the chief has with the media, behind him are the other administrators, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, are behind him. And that happens a lot in his news conferences. But one thing that I found a little odd was that on his left and right side, not behind him, were the city managers. And when I saw that, I knew then that they were the ones that were involved in this push. So the chief conferred with the Bexar County DA's office, Civil Rights Division, and with whatever evidence they saw. Now, mind you, they saw the body cam footage, but I know they couldn't have seen all of it. Okay, so mind you, there's statements that these officers have to write, and there's statements that, especially the officers that were actually fired, would be guided by an attorney, because everybody has the right to an attorney. Yes, including police officers. So I don't even know if he saw those, okay, because those take a while. Also, when a shooting occurs, they call out a shooting team, and it's several people from different units that come to collect the evidence of the scene and the situation that occurred. And they have a lot of elaborate equipment that and rightfully so, we're a big city, to be able to take measurements, to create diagrams. It's not the old school sketches and we used to do by hand, taking photographs, and I believe they take video. However many rounds were fired, I don't know that number, but it was a lot. They want to account for every single round. Where did it go? Where did it end up after it left that officer's gun? So there's all that information. I guarantee you, or that evidence, I guarantee you the chief didn't have that either. Okay. Also, there's evidence that had to have come from the fire department. Did he see the statements made by the initial responders of the fire department, who first witnessed her behavior and decided that they needed to call the police to handle this? Because that's what the fire does. If they have issues where it becomes dangerous for them, they call the police. Did they get statements from them? I doubt it. I mean, eventually, but I don't think within 6 hours he was able to see all that and decide to, with the DA's office, to charge these officers. He did mention in his statement that she was experiencing a mental health crisis. How do you know that definitively? And I'm not saying she didn't have them. I don't know, but we don't even have an autopsy report. Was she on drugs? A lot of people act like that and do stupid things and destructive things when they're high on narcotics, especially meth, because meth is now the drug of choice. And when you're what they call tweaking, meaning that you've been binging on meth for maybe a couple of days, and your body tells you, I can't take it anymore, and then you start coming down, that's what they call tweaking. And tweaking makes you do erratic behavior. You have super strength. They're the most dangerous and irrational people at that moment. So we don't know that, okay? Again, if it comes out that she wasn't, well, it comes out that she wasn't. But that should be important to consider to charge these officers in their with murder in that investigation. He says that they worked tirelessly to expedite the process of getting the body cam footage out due to some policy, their video release policy. And they made that up because they started getting this flack from the anti-police activists that, release the body cam so we can make sure you're not lying about what happened. All it is, and it wouldn't matter anyway. If it showed lawful actions by the police officers, the cop haters are still going to hate it. Okay, so they pander to those idiots to include the media, because the media, they want to get the info out quickly so they can create a story. Majority of the time, they don't tell you the story, they tell you a story. That's from Dan Bongino, by the way. So I'm stealing that from you, Dan. If you get to see this, thank you very much. I don't think I'll get as big as you, but who knows? So they put out their own narrative of the actions and whatever limited information that they see themselves. And as you know, most of the time it's anti-police anyway. It's embellished, it's exaggerated to make it look like that we acted recklessly and dangerously and we're just killers and we start shooting first before we ask questions. That's always the case, okay? We got to live with that crap. And they talk about the push for transparency. And everybody relies on this. Well, we want to be transparent because it makes us look like we're honest. Okay. Well, lots of times in the push for transparency, and especially in this situation, you may put out the wrong information that you have to choke on later because you got it wrong. And the chief should know this. He did it before already. He stepped on his dick before, listening to a bird's eye view of information briefly and then coming out with a statement, which he didn't have to make immediately, and tells them the wrong things. And then the media sees footage from a camera he didn't know about that tells a whole different story. And the chief looks stupid, okay? And that's his fault. In the interest of getting information out to the media especially. So I don't get that. Again, the hurry to get this information out to the public, and especially in this day and age, most of these people are going to look at it negatively. And mind you, use of force other than verbal, when you have to go hands-on, it's not pretty. Especially deadly force when you have to shoot somebody. A lot of people can't stomach that kind of action, whether it's justified or not. So they're going to see this stuff, and then they have empathy for whoever it may be, that the officers were mean, especially if we went outright. If I get shot at and I don't get hit, but I shoot back and I hit this person, somehow I'm the bad guy, or we're the bad guys, as police officers, because you start empathizing with this person. And that's the way it goes. It's ridiculous. We feel sorry for this career crook. Of course, he was going to turn his life around the next day. Had we just waited a day, he was going to be a totally different person. But nonetheless, it's not, this footage being viewed by these people is not a good thing, because what happens is they get to sit on these videos, however long they stay in whatever program they stay in, YouTube or whatever, because these videos are on YouTube, and so is the chief's conference, or they're on the news channel, or you can capture them or whatever to see them later. Mind you, cases like this will be pushed back 2 or 3 years. So how many views have they gotten? How many people have seen this? How many times have they seen it over and over again and just cooked on their ideas of police wrongdoing? And then the officer goes to trial and is supposed to be judged by a jury of his peers who may or may not have seen these videos, and have an unbiased assessment of the actions. There's absolutely no way that he's going to get a fair trial unless they move the venue to another city, which they usually don't. So I don't know how that's legal. And again, the news stories that don't give you the right information, and I'll show you, and you'll see, as you saw on the screenshot of the story, the words they use. Woman gunned down. They make it sound like it was the OK Corral. They use words like that to sell. It creates a dramatic appearance for it, and it gets views. They have a business, I get it, but it doesn't help us. So I did confer with an attorney, and releasing the videos so soon is legal. He said, yes, it's legal, but it's not right. But my answer to this also, my retort to this situation, I would ask this question to the chief and his minions. If you can assess whatever limited evidence and information that you have in 6 hours to decide that you can charge 3 on-duty police officers doing their jobs with murder, okay, you're so sure that that's what it was, not manslaughter, but murder. Why is it that when we have an officer-involved shooting, they call them OISs, by the way, and we have the same type of information, the body cam footage and other footage from other people, that were nearby, or surveillance camera footage or whatever, why can't you make the same assessment to put these officers back to work? When you see it's clear and cut, it was justified deadly force. They were using it in reaction to prevent a serious bodily injury or death to themselves or a third person. But yet you put them on admin duty, administrative duty is what it's called, for at least a year. Now, people need to understand something about administrative duty, okay? So they'll remove you from your unit. They may not. Sometimes some people get to stay. But you can't work in that capacity that you used to work. So you'll be sitting at a desk. You cannot work extra jobs. So you can't put on a uniform to go work a security job. Lots of times officers use that to supplement their income. They have regular jobs and that to support their families and whatever happens. They can't do that for the whole year because they're on administrative duty. And that is for sure. Okay, so mind you, I can't even put a number on how many years back, but I would say it's probably more than 5 now that the police department, homicide unit, and the internal affairs unit used to be able to confer with the DA and go, hey, looking at the preliminary evidence like they have here, would it be okay to put this person back to work? And it may be a couple of months or something like that. I was involved in a shooting in 2005. Me and a coworker shot a hostage taker, but it was a SWAT situation, and he had killed his ex-wife's new boyfriend, execution style, and handcuffed himself and walked down a flight of stairs with a gun to his head. And what it appeared to us was that he was going to do a murder-suicide. And we weren't doing anything. We were like telling him to drop the gun, but waiting for some sort of order to do something with this guy. Well, I made the decision to shoot him, and it worked. We didn't want to find out if he was going to kill her and then kill himself, or make us kill him after he killed her. Otherwise, there would be no reason for us to have been there for the 8 hours that we were there, 8 or 9 hours. I can't remember what it was. But I was back to work in 2 weeks because there was also video of it. There was a cameraman right behind me. We didn't have body cams back then, but he caught the whole thing. And I was back to work in 2 weeks. I had my gun back in a week. So I'm not saying that soon, but you keep these officers out for a year at least on administrative duty. And I know why you guys do it, because there's not even a need to confer with the DA, because the DA is not going to make that assessment. This DA that we have right now, I don't know him, but he is Soros bought, George Soros bought. He was financed, his campaign was financed by $1 million from George Soros. If you keep in touch and keep abreast of politics lately, George Soros is not a good man for the United States. He has gotten his hand into local district attorneys' elections, and he has gotten people like this DA elected. And in other parts of the country, like Los Angeles and San Francisco, these guys are anti-police, and they have an agenda of destruction. So, and they're being recalled. This one here is being real careful, but I hope people start realizing that this is here's what's coming with him. So they're not going to want to put an officer back to work because they're afraid of the anti-police backlash to say, well, how would you know? You just put a killer, because we're all killers, mind you. You just put a killer back on the street, and what if he kills again? Because sometimes officers do get into another shooting shortly after they get back to the street. That's just the way it goes. Some officers are what we call shit magnets. they go on duty and they find crime. They find these people and they get involved in other things. That's what they're supposed to do. Okay? And what's to stop them from having someone else try to kill them and or injure them seriously? And then that kind of proves, there he is. And let's say he wins again. Look, see, he's a killer. That's ridiculous that you think this about police officers, okay? Because if you look at all those instances, and that has never been the case. Okay, but we have to pander to these anti-police assholes like the Act 4 SA people that tried to pass this bullshit justice charter on us just a few months ago. And I did my first podcast on that. I hope you view that also. It's kind of long, but there's a lot of good information in it. So please check that out. But we defeated those idiots, thank God, because their agenda for wanting that justice charter was not going to help the city in any way, shape, or form. It was going to limit the police in their duties. And in a time of higher crime and rising crime rate, it wasn't going to help anybody. It wasn't going to help the police. It wasn't going to help public safety or the citizens in San Antonio. And I'm hearing here recently, and again, it's a rumor that one of the council people kind of blamed this situation on not passing the justice charter. This has nothing to do with it, you dumbass. It has zero to do with it, because none of the requirements or the changes that you wanted to make in that justice charter had to do with this situation. So, you're just trying to pass your agenda. It's a shame that you even tried to get that thing passed, okay? Because you're supposed to protect and do the work through the city for your constituents and their public safety, and you're not doing that. You're a cop hater. That's a lot of the city council. They're anti-police. You have to know that. They're liberal anti-police, okay? And of course, this isn't a podcast about that, but I have to say that. So the chief, he had to pander to the rest of the officers watching this, his news conference. And he says, quote, "This incident does not accurately reflect the high level of dedication and commitment to the over 2,500 officers on the department, or undermine the extensive and advanced training we provide to ensure safety for the officers and communities they serve." He had to say that, okay? So what do the actions of these officers reflect? Okay, give us that. Are they bad apples? Are they bad officers? Are they rogue officers? Are they vigilante officers that we finally found and that you did your job and now everybody's safe? Tell us that, okay? Because these guys answered a call for service. I mean, very well, they could have just sat on their ass and waited to not arrive like some officers do. They take the long way. They take the long route to get to the location they were dispatched to. And then he talks about the extensive and advanced training that they've gone through. Okay, what is that? Okay, now training should always be enhanced, and we should always think of new ways. But I promise you, a lot of this bullshit that he's talking about is this new way of policing that, again, pushed by these anti-police activists. Reimagining policing is what they call it. It's total bullshit, okay? And what it is pandering and begging people to comply. Begins with de-escalation. Okay, and de-escalation is a term, mind you, and but what's happened, it's become a tactic now, or a group of tactics, to ask and then ask again to comply, and then get to the point of begging to comply, and you don't take any other action. You don't increase your level of force like we are bound to do by our duties, like we used to be able to do back in the day. Okay, so because they've hemmed up officers on a lot of that stuff, well, you didn't de-escalate enough, because it's a subjective assessment usually. by lots of times people that don't know what the hell they're doing, to tell you the truth. You didn't assess or you didn't de-escalate quick enough. And then you get in trouble. You get suspended, or you get, reprimanded or written up or a finger shaken at you, whatever. So, and I've made this known and I'll continue to make it known. I hate de-escalation. Okay. Now, mind you, there is a time and a place for de-escalation. Okay. And that happens in any situation, arguments with people, not even police officers or whatever, to de-escalate the situation or the scene. That's understandable. But in my experience, my 33 years of law enforcement experience, it works less than enhancing your level of force or your use of force. I'm not saying your level, but enhances that use of force, because you can step up a level or go further, but nonetheless, it's actually more offensive than it is defensive, because de-escalation is defensive. Now, mind you that our job as police officers is already reactive in nature. And when you're reactive, you're behind in critical reactionary movements and the timing of things that you have to try to get ahead of. If you're reactive, try to get ahead of the action that was made against you. And that's dangerous in and of itself. And I understand that, though. I mean, we've had to live with that. But I grew up in an offensive manner, being on SWAT. We initiated the action. You react to us. We create the scene, okay? And usually we tell you the best things that can protect you from dying. Stop, drop, whatever you got, and get on the ground. And if you don't take that, well, then bad things happen. I've yet to run into somebody that's just deaf and doesn't understand what we're saying, and whatever we told them, they just didn't get it. That hasn't happened. I'm not saying it won't, but that hasn't happened. So this advanced training that he's talking about, they get 8 hours of it, like one full day of de-escalation, what they consider training, but it's in the classroom, okay? As if this is what's going to save you from getting hurt or killed. And I'm not saying it never does, but in my professional opinion, it doesn't work. It doesn't work as prevalently as being active and being and taking charge. So there's other stuff that they have, duty to intervene. It's all softer, kinder, gentler. Again, and you don't have to believe me. You can look at the stats going on right now. Crime is rising, so it's not working, man. Okay, and officers are figuring out, if I just don't do anything, I show up to work, I go park, I answer my calls with the least bit of force I could use and leave, I'm going to be safe from getting in trouble. I'm going to be safe from a complaint in internal affairs. Hell, I'm going to be safe from being charged with murder. So that's what they figured. That's survival is what it's become. It used to be surviving the streets. Now it's surviving the administration. By not being proactive, it's not going to do any good for public safety. I don't know what else they think is going to work. Okay, you have to try. What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing and getting the same over and over again, getting the same results. They're doing the same thing over and over again. They're dancing around the real situation. You have handcuffed the police with your bullshit policies, your woke anti-police policies. You've listened to these dumbasses, because they are usually the biggest crybabies. They throw the biggest tantrums and cause the biggest damage in the form of protests. But you don't deal with them there. That's illegal when you when you have a protest that turns into a riot, and then you start damaging and destroying things and injuring people. And they don't want to have to deal with that either. And now, granted, the friggin' government, this asshole in our White House, has allowed that, but it's trickled down to the cities. They destroy cities while we sit there and like, oh, we don't want to do anything to them, when they need their asses kicked. That's, and legally, they need a legal ass kicking, okay? And that's the only thing that's going to stop them. If they want to go somewhere else, some other city, there's Austin an hour away, go destroy that place, because those guys are lost cause too. So in summarizing what we've been talking about, in the interest of sucking up to the media and the anti-police public, transparency does more harm than good. in my opinion. And again, it's not just me pulling things out of my ass. I'll tell you how it's affecting the police officers, and in turn going to affect the public safety. It destroys the trust of the officers of the administration, which they have very limited of anyway lately. So this truly tells you that the chief, and I've already talked to some officers, that the chief does not have the backs of the officers that work for him, the over 2,500 officers that he's sucking up to, because that could be any one of them. Okay, they can be involved in a situation that he does the same thing to become political. They do the same thing that drives something like that politically, just like he's doing here. This is political, no doubt. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be charged. All right, at least give them the due process of a thorough investigation of everything, where everybody views all the evidence. And if it's determined at that point that they be charged with murder, then so be it. But this haste, everybody knows you're being political. We're not stupid. Just because we're of lower rank, or these officers of lower rank than the administration, than the chief, than deputy chiefs, the assistant chiefs, doesn't mean we're stupid. There's guys with double masters on this department. They just choose not to move up in rank because they enjoy what they do. Therein lies the problem on another thing. Because it's destroying their trust in the administration, like I mentioned before, they're not going to be proactive. They're not even going to want to be active. Okay, they're going to hesitate, which is dangerous for them. Because if you put yourself and you answer your calls and you put yourself in that situation, you have to act and you have to take deadly action as well. And if you hesitate, that can be the difference between your life or the other person's. That's not good. Okay, and that doesn't help, again, the public. If you look on Nextdoor, like I follow, I see time and time again people warning others of leaving their cars unlocked, that someone went into their driveway and opened a car door. Somebody's knocking on their door at 4 a.m. They had some packages taken off their porch, all kinds of stuff. And hey man, that's real. That's what's going on because there's lack of police enforcement. So what you're doing here, chief and city managers, you just really sealed the deal. I wouldn't trust you with anything. For supposed managers, you guys aren't managing the city very well. You're supposed to protect. You can't do anything else if the city's not safe. You can't paint your rainbow crosswalks or have your pride parades or work on your woke pronouns with the departments if you are not safe. Okay? That's first and foremost. So good luck with your bullshit. And like I keep saying, drastic change isn't going to happen until it gets really, really bad. This situation right here, what y'all just did to these officers, is really, really bad. Their actions, however they may be, is bad. But what you're doing for what you think is a greater good is not. So good luck. Thanks for watching.